Kill your customer with kindness. This chapter is very important because we are going to teach you how to deliver the best level customer service, how to handle cases, returns, how to observe your seller metrics and account health, and how to make sure eBay see you as a trustworthy seller. So I've started this chapter with this lesson. I want to go through the feedback hack templates. I've prepared here different messages for different scenarios that you will use on different situations you will have with customers, like message after sale, message after the product ship, what are you doing when product is out of stock, etc. But I want to again repeat and say, kill your customer with kindness. Be as kind as possible. And remember that the customers that buying from your products are real people. They're real people, and they may come back to your store, or they may refer your store to someone else. So you want to make sure they're so happy and satisfied with your service that they talk about you in their Friday dinner with their family and friends. And I've just prepared here a list of messages. I will go through all of them and I will read them loud, and I will try to give you input and ideas on how you can even make them better. So message after sales. You've listed product to eBay, you generate your first sale, you generate a sale. You want to immediately send message to the buyer. This can be set automatically using eBay or your listing software, and you can learn more about it in future lessons. But let's go through this message and read it together. Hey buyer, you will use the buyer name. Thank you very much for your purchase. We appreciate your quick payment. We left a positive feedback for you. We are preparing your item for shipping, and we will update you as soon as possible with a tracking number. We always want to remove the unknown. We always want to make the buyer feel that we think about everything, okay? Thanks for shopping at your store name. We appreciate your business and look forward to seeing you again soon. Have a nice day. Sincerely, you can put your name. For instance, Nahar Geva, Vice President of Customer Service, to make it sound professional. So I was very nice, very friendly, and I made sure to mention every step on the way forward, right? Now, second message after product being shipped. Good news. We want to start with a very positive quote. Good news. And you use the buyer name. Your order shipped on the 1st of April, 2016, 2022. Your shipment is on the way and it will get into you in X business days. We've included tracking information so you can easily follow its progress. And then we are adding the tracking number here, even though we are updating the tracking number on the listings on eBay, on the order on eBay. We send the tracking number in both ways, and I suggest here to put link for the tracking number. Please note that it may take up to 24 hours for your tracking data to appear on the carrier's website. We hope you enjoy your purchase and thank you again for shopping at your store name. Please leave us 5-star rating and positive feedback on eBay if you enjoyed the item. Now, I'm not requesting them to put right now the feedbacks. I just put this seed in their mind and say, if they like the item, put it. Leave us this 5 stars rating. It's important for us, okay? Now, all the text that we use here can be adjusted based on your approach. I also suggest you to even re-edit it a little bit so it's unique to yourself. Add little quotes, little words that will make difference, that will make the buyer feel special, that will make the buyer feel good, that the buyer will feel he get personal touch. You don't want it to sound like those automated messages. You want to put this personal touch, and usually small slangs, small positive words can make big difference. For instance, here starting with good news, you know, people just open their mobile and they see first things on their feed they see will be good news. They will already have this positive feeling. We're trying to activate and release dopamine in their brain, okay? Scrolling down to number 3, we ship international with the global shipping. So there is the global shipping program when you can use eBay services to ship products internationally, and you will get people asking you questions about where do you ship products to and different stuff like this. So I've prepared here for you a message ready for this scenario. Hi buyer name, thank you for contacting us. We ship international with eBay Global Shipping Program. Please proceed to checkout and you will see the shipping cost. Please make sure your address is correct. If there is anything else we can help you with, please contact us and we will be glad to assist you. Yours, name, Vice President of Customer Service. So here what we want to do is we want to have a ready message to address international buyers asking if we can ship to their country. We'll go down to number 4, message for canceling order for being out of stock or any other reason. We don't want to cancel orders for being out of stock. So we'll always need to find another excuse, okay? I don't want you to go to cancel order and choose for the reason the product been out of stock, so you will get a defect. So we want to find excuses, and we also want to use this situation and try to leverage it. Sometimes we can offer other replacement. Let me go through the message right now. So, hi buyer, thank you for purchasing from our store. I'm sorry to inform you, but when your order was processed, we found a defect in your product and we didn't want to send you a defect item. So, you're trying to show the buyer that you put effort, okay? You put effort, and because you're honest with him and while you've been processing the order, you discover that there is defect with the item, you don't want to ship the buyer this item, right? You don't want to ship defect item. You take responsibility on the situation. This is why I had to refund your payment. In the meantime, please don't order this item until I have all the answers from the manufacturer, as it was sent for further inspections. You always want to give them the feeling that you always work on something, that you always put extra effort. You send the product for inspection. You don't want them to place another orders because it's not yet ready. You take ownership, you take responsibility, and you express it with confidence, okay? Now we want to again show them how sorry we are. Again, I'm sorry about this issue. Please accept my apology for that, as I consider my client satisfaction's first priority. The feedback you give means a lot to me, and I hope you understand the situation. So again, you show them how important it is for them. Now, I can tell you that I use this quote here, this part here. I copy paste it into different situations. Anytime I have issue with customers, I use this quote to end the conversation with, to show them how I care about the situation. Now, there is another situation, okay, where instead of canceling the order, you want to offer alternative for the buyer. So when I process an order and I see, oh, you know what, there is similar item from different brand, or there is the same item in different colors or different size, I do not cancel the order yet. I try to communicate with the buyer, maybe send him another product. So here you have the template for this. Hey buyer, how are you? Thank you for your purchase. I'm sorry to let you know, but when your order was processed, we found defect in your product and we didn't want to send you a defect item. I'm now thinking how to compensate you. Compensate. Using the word compensate all the time, it's very good. What do you think? Do you prefer to cancel the order, or I also sell another version of this doll, for example, with a much cheaper price? I'll give you a refund for the difference. And then you put link to the alternative. Please let me know what you prefer. Sincerely, Nahar Geva, Vice President Customer Service. So instead of just, being afraid, oh, I cannot process this order, or I don't have this item anymore in stock in my supplier, you can take this situation for your advantage. Okay, you can take this situation for your advantage and try to sell another option, offer another version of similar item. I hope you guys find it useful. You can find the link for this message template below this video or around this video, and I again suggest you to little bit, just give your personal touch on every message, and anytime you see situations that repeat, you can create message template for it so you can use it again.
In this tutorial, we are going to go over how to send a message to your buyer after you have received payment from your buyer. And this is super important when it comes to eBay because they want you to kill your customer with kindness. It's super important to keep in touch with your buyer, and this way that they are ensured that you're a real person trying to get their order to them. So it's super important when you ship the item that you notify your buyer, when they receive the item that you notify your buyer, when you get their payment that you notify your buyer. Always be in contact with your buyer. And it's also important to note that if you do get a message from your buyer, that you respond as soon as possible. So from the Seller Hub, we're going to go into orders and we're going to jump into all orders. So we're gonna actually go ahead and write a rough draft of a message that you can send to your customer. So this is a template that I use. In all honesty, when the payment has been received and we have proceeded immediately with shipment. So before the item is actually shipped, this is the message that I will be sending to let the customer know that the payment has been received. So you go ahead into your orders and you can go ahead and select contact buyer, and automatically you have the option to write something to your buyer. Once you have your message in, you can go ahead to the bottom and send message. Then once you have shipped the item to your buyer, another message has to come right after it, informing your customer that you have shipped the item. And you can also write the estimation time as to when it will be received by your buyer. Then again, you're going to jump into all orders here on eBay. Again, to the same buyer, select contact buyer. And then of course, write your message again. Go to the bottom and send message. Now, the really important reason why we contact our buyers is for our feedback score. We need good feedback so that customers on eBay can know that we are reliable. This will help you increase your selling limit. The higher the feedback, the more sales. So again, contacting your buyers is really important when it comes to sales and of course your feedback score. And not only that, but it helps the buyer come back again because they know you are reliable and you will keep in touch with them throughout the process. All right, so now let's talk about how to manage return cases. From your Seller Hub, we're gonna go ahead and jump into orders and click on returns. Here you will see all of your results as well as the action, items, status, details returned, and buyer information. In this case, it's super important for you to respond before you get a message from eBay telling you that you need to respond. Meaning that you have to respond to the case before the due date expires from eBay. So there's a couple different things and reasons why buyers decide to return the items. It could be a defect item, not the authentic item, fake item, and so on. And in these cases, the seller has to accept the returned item and give the money back to the buyer. So if you see that the reason there is a return for changing someone's mind, so the buyer changed their mind, they don't want the product anymore. In this case, the seller doesn't have to worry because the return fees will be paid by the buyer. And also you are responsible to provide the buyer with a return label. So here's a case where I have accepted the return and provided the buyer with a return label. So the buyer also does have a limit on the date where it has to return the item, and that date is usually written in this form. And if the buyer does not return the item before or on this date, you can request eBay to cancel the return. And you can just do this by writing eBay that the buyer did not ship the item back. And when the buyer does ship the product, all of that information will be here. The tracking details such as number and carrier. So for this example, the buyer did send the item and they did ship it, and you can see all of the tracking, where it was and where it's going to be. Once you have received the returned product, you have to refund as well. And eBay will notify you in the email the date that you have to send the refund, and you have to do it before that date. And you can automatically refund the buyer as soon as you have seen that the return was delivered. If you do get a reason for a return doesn't work or defective, you can actually offer your buyer partial refund. And if they choose to accept it, great. But if the buyer declines the partial refund, you have to provide them with a return label. If you do not want to provide your buyer with a return label, you have to give them the full refund. And if you choose not to do any of those, you will get a case without a resolution, which is really bad as an eBay seller. So to summarize, if you do get a return on a defective item, you can offer your buyer a partial refund. If they choose not to accept your partial refund and they want all of their money back, you can provide them with a shipping label where they will return the item to your supplier and get a full refund. And of course, if you do not want to supply your buyer with a return label, you must refund the buyer completely. But if a buyer does change his mind, and that is the reason for the return, I usually do not provide the return label. They are responsible for the cost and the return label in order to get their refund. So if the buyer does not ship the item by the date that it has, I can request eBay to shut this case down. You can also offer your buyer a replacement item, and you can tell eBay that you have replaced the item and they can close these cases as well. In this tutorial, we are going to go over how to manage item not received. So here on eBay, we're actually going to go into the seller hub. You're going to go under orders. Then you're going to select request and disputes. On this page, you will see any open cases that you have. And if you have an item not received case, it will appear on this page as well. And you can just simply click see details. For this example, I don't have an item not received case, but I do have a payment dispute case. And you can see the status of it is still awaiting decision. So I do have a resolved item not received case, which we will go over. So this is just one of a few examples that I received. And these are items not received. So this is how I handled and actually managed the case. So for example, I'm going to click on see details, even though this case has been closed or resolved. So we have the request message from the buyer and they say that they did not receive the item. But after checking the tracking number, I have received information that the item has successfully been delivered to the buyer's address. And it's also synchronized with the buyer's postal code. So this was enough evidence for me to show eBay and the buyer that the item has been successfully delivered to the buyer. So it's really important in such cases that you respond quickly to the buyer's message and of course upload the tracking number again. This is so your buyer knows, as well as eBay, which is really important, that the package has been delivered. So as you can see, because I use DHL Express, I did tell the buyer to contact the nearest DHL service to her and assist her further. Then after a day or so, the buyer will send a message saying that the DHL delivered package that evening, and she thanked us or thanked me. In this case, the buyer's request has been closed. And the reason it was closed is because the package was received. Then looking at another case, another buyer has written that he has not received the item. But of course, with tracking, I have seen that the package has been delivered to the buyer's address. So again, I have asked them to reach their closest DHL and provided them a number that they can call as well. So besides just telling your buyer, nope, I see that the package has been delivered to your address, and then leaving it at that, you can give your buyer advice as to what they could do in order to contact their nearest DHL or any other shipping that you have used so that they could get their package, because there are some things that can go wrong. Maybe the buyer wasn't home when the package was delivered. Maybe there was a change in address, and so on. So after all of these messages, the shipping has been rescheduled and the buyer did end up getting their package. So in this case, eBay has closed the case in my favor without any refund to the buyer. And this case will not affect my seller performance, and any feedback left from this transaction will be removed. So when it comes down to it, when you have an open case with item not received, it's really important that you have all of the information, the tracking number, when it was sent, with what carrier it was sent with, and make sure you track it. Because if the buyer says that they did not receive it, that's fine. It's a possibility. But give the buyer advice as to what to do in order to receive their package if you see that by the tracking number that the item has been received by the buyer. With all the evidence that you provide to the buyer via these messages, eBay cannot have a case against you, nor can the buyer have a case against you. These cases are meant to be closed in your favor. That way your feedback score doesn't come lower than it is. In this tutorial, we're going to go over the service metrics. So we're going to go ahead and jump into our seller hub, go on my eBay, and then jump into selling. And then at the top, you see the word performance. Go ahead and hover over it and then select service metrics at the bottom. So here in this page, you're going to go ahead and see the items not as described returns. So this certain category is health and beauty. Yours might be something else. And if you have more categories, you will have a list of them there. So in this scenario, you can see that there are an 8.66% return, which is categorized as very high. So as a result, the seller will have 5% more on their final value fee. Here you have a pie graph over on the right side. You can see that there are 22 returns. So how they calculate it is they take the total transactions, which is 254, and items as not as described, 22. So they take 22, divide by your total transactions, and you get your percentage. And then right below the pie graph, you can see the reason of the returns. You have 13 that are not working or defective. You have 1 that arrived damaged. 2 of the wrong item, 2 doesn't match description or photos, and 4 not authentic. And that sums up our tutorial for the service metrics. So in this tutorial, we're going to go over the Seller Hub and how to optimize the features inside the Seller Hub. So as usual, go to My eBay and click under Selling. So first at the top, we'll see a variety of tabs. We have orders, listings, marketing, store, performance, payments, research, and reports. Here at the bottom, we have our tasks with the print labels and shipping. We also have the read, unread messages from eBay members. So make sure if you do have any of these pending, you fulfill all of the tasks daily. So next to that, we have sales, and this is a chart for the data across 31 days. Of course, you can see today's sales, last 7 days, last 31 days, and the last 90 days. And next to that, over on the right-hand side, we have the orders details page. So you have all of the details there, the awaiting shipment, all open returns, replacements, awaiting payments, shipped and awaiting your feedback, and so on. Also make sure to fulfill all of these tasks as well. Down at the bottom, you have listings, active listings with questions. You have 5 here for this seller. So we have traffic next to that. You have your listings impressions, and this is for all of your listings. Below that, you have the click-through rate and listing page views. Next is seller level. You have to make sure every month that all of your seller levels are above standard. Further details, we can go ahead and click here. So you can see that this seller had a top rated level before, but because of the tracking uploaded on time and validated, it has now just become above standard. And of course, the transaction defect rate is less than 3. So your aim is to get a top rated seller. So tracking and uploaded on time and validated is super important to get the top rated seller. Of course, you can see your transaction as well as sales. You can also find your return rate down towards the bottom. Going back to the seller hub, let's look at the feedback. You have the feedback in the last 30 days and of course the most recent. So this seller, for example, got 5 positive, 1 neutral, and 0 negative, which is great. Then of course here in the seller hub, you have shortcuts, which just gives you all the pages that you use, and it's just easier access to get to everything. Then of course, next to that, you have the selling tools. So it's quick access to your subscriptions, for example, your eBay seller capital, and so on. So here we have selling announcements, just messages from eBay if there's important information, and so on. Next to that, you have the promotional offers. And next to that, you have monthly limits. So of course, you have the quantity of items limit, and then you have an extended limit. And then at the bottom, you have research. You can use it to do product research. So let's do one more stop under store and under subscriptions. You can see that this seller is using a basic store and it's built on a monthly rate of $27.95. You have the option to change your subscription. So of course, in your seller hub, using all the tabs at the top, you are able to go deeper into all of these orders, listings, marketing, store, performance, payments, research, and reports, and make all of the changes that you need. And that wraps up this tutorial on the seller hub. In this tutorial, we are going to be going over seller resolution. So first, we're going to go ahead and jump into our seller hub. Then you're going to go ahead and hover over orders and jump down into returns. So here you will have your open return cases. The status for most all of these return cases have been already shipped by the buyer. And the seller has provided the buyer with a return label. If the return reason, such as this case, doesn't work or defective, the seller needs to provide the buyer with a return label. But if the reason was the buyer changed their mind, the seller does not have to provide the return label. In that case, if the buyer did change his or her mind, they have to be the one who provides the return label. Now let's go into the item specifics here, or item details. And you can see that this particular item has been shipped, so there is no need to do anything in this case. Do not refund the buyer until you get the returned item. Once the returned item arrives, inspect it and then refund the buyer. So now let's go ahead and hover over orders and jump into requests and disputes. Here you will see other open cases, and I highly suggest you respond quickly to open cases. So you can see that this seller has provided information needed by eBay, and the status for both is still awaiting decision. And then here over on the right, you can see the buyer details, amount, and of course the date opened. And of course, you can see all the details of each case by clicking on See Details. So at the bottom, you can see the history, when the dispute was opened, if you provided additional details, and if the payment has been sent to institution. So now, as you can see at the top, it's awaiting a decision. And then, of course, once you get the decision, you have outcome decided. And of course, you also have the summary of the dispute. You have to make sure to respond to all of the open cases within a time frame that eBay provides you. And that wraps up our tutorial on seller resolution.